Cheers, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast / your podcast with these beautiful setup that you have. I really appreciate it.
Didn't you threaten me if I didn't come on?
I did. I did.
Well, congratulations. It worked.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm very afraid for my life.
Thank you. As you should be.
Should we lead in with the shirtless intro that we had before?
It was hot in here, man. It was really hot. We were setting up. I was sweating. People that know me know I sweat a lot. It had to be done.
You didn't look like you were sweating a lot. It looked like you wanted me to see the best 0-for-0 fighter in the world.
0-0 fighter is how it needs to be titled.
Listen, I'm not into the fight vernacular, bro. I'm just trying to tell you what I know.
I know, yeah. Awesome studio, man. Congratulations. I see that you're putting a little bit of the money behind this, and you got a good 5-6 followers, now 7.
I think that might be. You might actually be number 5. We've been looking for number 5.
Oh, really?
But the studio's labor of love, man. We're not even finished. This week, but we have lighting still to put in. We've got cameras to put in. We've got a little more sound editing to do, and then we'll probably screw that up 3 or 4 times in between now and then.
Of course,
so redo it. But this is all temporary, and then when we get it all done, hopefully it'll be a little more.
Of course, man. Awesome.
A little more sexy.
What prompted you to start? Because people always ask me, why did you start a podcast? I want to ask you, because your fucking resume is probably the most extensive resume. For those of you who don't know, Chris is correct me if I'm wrong. He's the chief credit officer of a Fortune 500 bank that you started. I remember when you started that bank, by the way.
Yeah, myself and a team of people. But
yeah. Real estate brokerage you own.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Higher Standard podcast. Mm-hmm. General contractor. What the fuck is that all about? I don't know.
How even the studio got done, bro. I'm too cheap to pay somebody else.
Attorney.
Yeah.
What else? What am I missing here?
I think that's about it. I am a world-class asshole.
Yes.
That counts.
Yes.
But honestly, man, all those things is really kind of built off of other things that I was doing. Mm-hmm. It was just more about trying to figure out. When I was a kid, I worked actually in an office like this with my father, and he knew enough about single-family real estate to teach me how to do it. But every time I asked him questions like the secondary market and everything else, he couldn't answer it. So I went and got a job in commercial real estate. My entire career has always been kind of this seeking more information. So that's honestly the same reason why I went to law school. Is I just wanted to know more about how to protect myself. And becoming a contractor, I was buying real estate, so it made sense that if you're doing your own work, that you should probably get licensed and get the discounts for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just one thing leads to another, and you start getting opportunities, and you kind of leverage them. I think a lot of people quit and they take time off, or they put things in the back burner. I just never do that. I just continue to try to push as much as I can. That's why we're also recording a podcast at like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
on
a Sunday. Yeah. Crazy, right? Yeah. So I remember when we first started met. By the way, for those of you who don't know, we met playing basketball, kind of developed a casual relationship, a friendship, and then I'm maybe 5-6 years younger than you.
Wow, you just called me old. You just called me old. I'm a little older than you, but let's not forego you tried to get in a fight with me the first time we played basketball.
Yes, right? I wanted to legitimately fight you the very first time we met,
which is a very normal reaction. I'm not a very nice person on the basketball court.
Neither was I. The temper came out. I'm glad we didn't. I would have gotten demolished, but.
No, you wouldn't have. I fight like a girl. Like
you're 50, 60 pounds heavier than me, and 6'5".
Now I'm old and fat.
But you're like 8 inches taller than me.
Back then I was like 200 pounds. I was about as much as you are right now.
Yeah. Oh, come on. $170, baby.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm oh my God, I'm almost 100 pounds more than you.
You know, I've lost 30 pounds in the last 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a gnarly back injury, still do, but
I know.
Doctor was just like, you have to lose weight and strengthen your core. And
your doctor actually said that to you?
100%.
No,
he didn't call me a fat ass.
No doctor in my life has ever said that to me.
But it's helped, man. I mean, I lost the belly and the back just slowly started to get better. But anyways, yeah, I remember we first met. I was a young, just dumb kid, and you were a little bit older than me, but I think we're still fairly young. I think I was 17, 18 when I met you. And luckily we didn't fight, but I think that very first interaction that we had, you may not remember it, but it kind of led to you and I respecting one another. Just because, tempers flare when you're competitive playing sports, and then when the game is over, you kind of build that camaraderie, that friendship. And I specifically remember we went to the Carl's Jr. right down the street from here.
This is going to be an episode all about me being fat. this is not a good thing. We did. It's right on the corner.
Yeah, we went there. And I remember I looked up to you because you were very ambitious. You were always talking about, hustling. And you told me a little bit about your background, how you were broke in college years, because I was in college and I was broke. And you said you're supposed to be broke when you're in college. And you had a I remember you had a 7 Series, and I was like, "That's fuck. I wanna."
Did I have a 7 Series then?
Yeah, the
black one.
The black one, yeah.
Damn,
That was a sick car.
Was I in my early 20s when I had? I did.
Yeah.
Damn. So, two points of note. Like that perspective and that attitude, that lost me more friends, and frankly set me off on the wrong path so early that if I could go back and change all that, if I could go back and slap myself, I would.
Why?
Because it's like, when you're young, you're ambitious, like outwardly, because you want to believe you're capable of so much more. And when you get older, you're ambitious inwardly because you're capable of so much more. And when you're young and everybody around you, and our parents are Middle Eastern, right? So my dad was always telling me, you have to be this, you have to be that. And I certainly wasn't on the traditional path, and I wasn't really good in school. But, money was always important to me just because I'd been poor. I didn't want to be poor again. I knew what being broke was like. And I think at that age, I spent too much time telling everybody what I wanted and what I was doing because I wasn't confident and proud of myself yet. Because I didn't get that at home. Like most people's parents, if you come from a traditional Caucasian family, they're like, oh my God, son, I'm so proud of you.
Right.
It took probably 10, 15 years after that before my dad to ever look at me and say, wow, like, this is what you do? This is how much you make? I'll never forget. This is probably off topic, but my dad saw I asked him to help me get a loan because I was just too busy and I don't want to go through my own bank. So it just, it's conflict. So I said, Dad, I want to buy this property, blah, blah, blah. I'll send you all my stuff. I sent it over to him. Like 5 minutes, my dad calls me. And usually my dad calls me just to like tell me he sent an email. Like, hey, son, I sent you an email. Did you check it? So I thought nothing of it. He's like, hey, I just got your email. I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks, Dad. You don't have to call me and tell me. He's like, no, I saw your tax returns. And I go, oh, yeah. He's like, this is how much you make? And I'm like, yeah. And I'll never forget the immediate family party we went to afterward. It was the first time in my entire life my dad wasn't lying to everybody, telling everybody I was an attorney at the time, which I wasn't until later on. He was like, my son, the banker.
Nice.
All of a sudden, the banker was like a prestigious thing, and it meant something to him. But when I was a kid, man, like I just wanted to feel that accomplishment. I felt like a failure. In the car and all that stuff. I should have never been driving a 7 Series when I was 23 years old. Even now, I drive a 2015 Jeep. And I have some other cars, but but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even back then, I mean, I did sense a little bit of that, but at the same time, I was able to read through it just because you were articulate, you knew your shit. I was very into finance and investments at that time, and you
still are, brother.
I still am, big time. But I remember, someone told me Chris and his team are starting a bank. This was, I'm assuming it was First Foundation.
Yeah, it was. That was October 2007.
So tell me, because we met, I think 2003, 4-ish. From then, we just kind of casually knew each other. We would run into each other at the gym, kind of casual outings. But I didn't know too much about what you were doing. What were you doing then, and what transitioned you into starting that bank?
So this is kind of funny. For those of you who are uninitiated, the Great Recession really started to be palpable in 2006. In 2007, by the time we were in full swing of what we now know as the recessionary economy, it was a very tumultuous time. I was working as an underwriter for Impact Multifamily Commercial Capital Corporation. There's a lot there. Anyway, they made multifamily apartment and commercial loans to people, but it was under the Impact brand. Impact was publicly traded at the time. They were down to the pink sheets, like a lot of lenders are right now during this particular economy, and they were predominantly a single-family lender. Their business was tanking, and they did a lot of subprime. So we had a 60-day warn notice that came by, and it basically said that in the next 60 days, unless something changes, you're unemployed. It's really hard to keep people motivated at that point. They're like, I'm looking for another job. Like, I'm not going to be here in 60 days. So I think it was day 58, 59, day 59. So the next day we were going to be unemployed. One of the underwriters, Helen Ishikawa, who still works for us today as an underwriter, she went to an interview, and she came back from the interview, came back in the office and handed me a card, said, I think they're looking for somebody more like you. I called up the next day. It was my last day. I was officially unemployed after that. I went to the office, and there were some people there that I actually knew. And it was all the guys who were starting the bank. And I thought nothing of it. I walked in, said, okay, starting a bank. I'm not a banker. I'm a lender. There's a palpable and tangible difference. And if you don't know, it's okay. I didn't know then what I needed to know now. I thought I didn't get the job. I thought I was just too young. I mean, I think at the time I was 26 and very ambitious, but I knew enough at that point to know what I didn't know. So I went out and did the responsible thing. My last day of employment, it's lunchtime. I went out and got pissed drunk, like just drunk off my ass. I went to Newport Beach to a buddy of mine's house, and I got a phone call around 4 p.m. saying, "Hey, it's Scott. We're going to hire you." And I was like, "What?" And I was lucky I remembered it, but I think I started the next week.
Wow.
So I technically tell people I was unemployed for like half a day or a day or something like that, but I officially started like the next week. But I started there as an underwriter, not as anything that I am now. And it became very quickly apparent before we opened our doors to the public that the guy who was doing my job, who's still a friend and mentor to this day, was having some significant, just shortcomings as it relates to kind of the other broader sides of the business that I knew, the commercial stuff and lending, the real estate lending. To give you an idea of how impactful that was, well, we're the second largest multifamily lender in the state of California currently. And across the country, we're in several states, Hawaii, Las Vegas, Texas, Florida. So, I mean, and the list goes on and on. So it's just one of those things where it was such a big part of our business that for the guy who was supposed to be my, superior to not have that. So we worked side by side rather than me working underneath him for years. And he wound up developing adult onset diabetes. Broke my heart. He was a great mentor. He taught me a tremendous amount about banking. And when it was finally done for him to move aside, it was a conversation where I was already told in advance it was going to happen. So I actually didn't want him to leave. But that was a long time ago now. But I took over the role, and I've been doing it ever since.
As chief credit officer?
Chief credit officer of the bank.
So, I have a fairly extensive background in finance and investments, but I know very little about the banking business.
Right.
Couple questions. How many pieces does it take to start a bank? How do you get approved with all the regulatory components to it? And kind of walk me through the process, because I'm thinking, how do you start a bank? How does that even work?
Capital, a resume, and then if you're lucky, you get a charter. So effectively, you have to pick your regulator. For example, we're a California State non-member bank, means we're regulated by the DFPI, Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and the FDIC.
Okay.
There's also the Federal Reserve Bank. There's the OCC. They typically are larger banks in my experience, and they're much different regulators, but you can pick your regulator if you will. At our size, when we started, I think we started with about, I want to say, going back on, it was about $25 million in capital. We did a capital raise out of what was then the Keller Group. It was a wealth advisory firm where they had a bunch of people who were looking to make investments, and one of the investments they offered them was this opportunity to get into a de novo bank, or a bank before it actually. And
what type of returns do they promise the investors, or not promise, but kind of show that they can receive?
Well,
right.
I mean, at the time, I think our buy-in price was around $9 or $10 a share, and I think we've had a split since then, and we trade around 20 right now.
Okay.
So to give you an idea, and it was pretty significant. If you were if you had the money to sit there and wait, and you were willing to play the game, it was a significant return. I mean, as good as any return you're going to get. People like Apple who had a split.
Yeah.
You're going to get your money back. Now, I will say we went public 7 or 8 years ago, traded on the NASDAQ, FFWM. That was a huge event because all those people who had the opportunity to sell out could, but most people who've rolled this far with us, they're not going to sell. They see the value in what we're building, and how when you get ingratiated over the course of now almost 15 years, you become part of like the family. So a lot of these people who are early shareholders are still the shareholders to this day. They've enjoyed that ride up, and now they've got significant capital gains concerns if they sell. So.
Yeah, well, that's the capital gain deferral and tax strategy is kind of what I focus on for my clients. So interesting. But I'm just kind of curious, chief credit officer, and I called you, I think, a couple years ago. I had a premium finance case, and I was curious because for those of you who don't know, I don't want to kind of take it too technical, but for the ultra high net worth, and I get this question a lot, is like, are there any specific investments that the ultra high net worth get access to that the regular folks don't? Generally speaking, the answer is no, but there are a few instances where that's not true. Premium finance is one of those. Generally, you have to have a $10 million net worth or higher in order to even qualify to get premium finance. And just I'll try to make it as easy as possible. If you need life insurance, you generally just pay premiums, you get life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you do premium finance, you get a bank to pay for your premiums, and you leverage your money, and you get a life insurance policy on a leveraged situation. And for my ultra high net worth clients, we do this often if it makes sense for them. And we always have to have banking relationships. So I remember I called you and I said, do you guys do premium finance? And I understand the risk associated with it, but I was just curious, what was it that, because your initial reaction was like, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what was it about your experience with the premium finance that kind of led you to say, no, we don't want any risk on that end?
So it was for a while, we had insurance services in-house, and that was something that we offered our ultra high net worth clients as well. There were 3 or 4 of them that just went south, where people didn't understand how locked into it they were. They didn't understand. I mean, some of that's just disclosures up front. Some of that's just them understanding kind of the more technical understanding of the aspects of how this actually plays out for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them just had divorces and stuff like that happen.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of one of those things where it had, in the last 15 years we've had this bank, we've had very, very few special assets or assets that needed to be worked out. This was a reoccurring problem. So rather than to go farther down that path, we just decided that we weren't going to look at it anymore.
I think in my industry, there's a lot of crooks, and we get a bad rep. Financial planners, wealth managers.
I wouldn't say they're crooks. They're just a lot of people. So it took me a long time to figure out that a financial planner isn't necessarily the chief investment officer, the person making the investments.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you're going to get a salesperson who doesn't have the technical proficiency to really help you understand the product. And those people who are more salesy, they give you guys the bad rap.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I used to manage my clients' assets, but I don't do that anymore just because unless I'm sitting there in front of the computer watching the markets day in and day out.
I do that every day. I'm addicted to CNBC. It's bad.
I mean, I do watch it every day, but I can't beat the benchmark. I just can't. I mean, the S&P over the past 10 years have done fairly well. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if my trading ability would have done better, so I outsourced that to professional money managers. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are a lot of, you call them salesy, I call them just straight up crooks. I mean, people who will, on those premium finance life insurance situations, they will illustrate an insane rate of return, and they'll illustrate the interest rates never going up.
Yeah, so they assume like the S&P 500 goes up every single year.
Yeah.
And for a while it did. I
Sure.
mean, for a while that was an easy assumption. But I would say anybody using those kind of assumptions right now is probably a little misguided.
Of course.
But I guarantee you that information has not been swapped out, and they're not showing downward projections for a recessionary economy.
Of course, yeah. So
it's just... And that therein lies the challenge for the consumer, right? If you're a consumer and you have acquired wealth,
mm-hmm.
that doesn't necessarily mean you understand how to manage money.
Mm-hmm.
That means you've found a business and you've grown it.
Sure.
That in and of itself is a completely different skill set of managing and keeping your money over time. And we're not taught the fundamentals, much less more complicated financial
mm-hmm.
literacy as we get older. So we don't have this proficiency. So if somebody sits in front of us and shows us these charts and these numbers that go up over time, you go, this makes sense. I'm going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Great. Right? But the reality is we don't know what we don't know. And that's where I think really separates the good wealth advisory firms
mm-hmm.
from the bad ones. The good ones will actually have tools and assets in place to help you learn and grow. Some of the things we've had in the past, to give you an idea, is we've had an on-staff psychologist.
Really?
To deal with legacy family wealth issues. We've had actual training and education, so it's not just us giving you something. It's we're going to teach you about it, and then you tell us if you want this or not at some point.
Interesting.
We've done credit classes for kids, because a lot of people, you'd be surprised how many uber high net worth individuals, celebrity clients that'll come into our office, and they're going to say, hey, I want to buy a house, and they wouldn't sell it to me. And we're like, well, what do you mean they wouldn't sell it to you? Well, they pull my credit and this and that, and you look at the credit score, and you're like, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And their whole lives have been on cash.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any credit cards.
Mm-hmm. They
live in their parents' homes. They don't have any. They never bought a car with credit, so they don't have a credit score, and it's just recurring kind of phenomenon. So the great firms take this personal pride, and their value proposition to the market isn't growing your wealth; it's teaching you how they can grow your wealth for you.
Mm. Now, that psychologist that you mentioned, what's her role in you said legacy planning? So I'm assuming she'll make sure that the money gets passed on from one generation to the next in the most seamless, because I've experienced with ultra high net worth clients, the kids getting involved.
It's ruthless.
Crazy.
Yeah,
families just get torn apart because of money, and it's sad. But I'm assuming that's where the psychologist comes into play. Or
100%. So you'll be in a situation where it's easy for mommy and daddy to be the disciplinarians in a situation, but the whole point of having money and having these conversations is to one day pass it on to your kids. Well, if you can't pass it on to your kids in a way that they can actually be financially responsible, then your second choice is to run through like a bank trust department and have a trust, something like that.
Yep.
But in theory, and we're both parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want your kids to be responsible adults.
Sure.
Well, sometimes those tough conversations are best when they don't come from mommy and daddy. They come from somebody whose job it is to explain the psychology, because adversity builds character.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the first generation wealth has gone through adversity to make that money. That character is there.
Mm-hmm.
The second generation, though, and this is what I worry about with my son, is I'm going to leave him a portfolio of assets when I die.
Mm-hmm.
A little shit, but you know, and he's not going to have the same talent. He's not going to be like you and me at Carl's Jr. You know, he's not going to. Oh God, I hope not. Anyway, but you know, he's not going to have the same fears.
Sure.
Like when I was growing up, I was just trying to get like years successful from my dad. He's going to go up knowing like I'm going to be successful either way.
Yep.
So it's just a different perspective, but a lot of these things can really impact kids. So having somebody with an on-staff psychologist there to really kind of ferret out these details and to help people grow, at least fiscally anyway, has proven to be a value add.
I can see that. So I once took a course on helping my clients who are looking to sell their business. And in that course, there was a psychologist there, and she was trying to kind of sell herself on her services, because we were being trained on helping clients sell their massive businesses, and they're going to come in this windfall of large sums of money. And exactly that, like how to pass it on to the next generation. And I was thinking, what do you mean I need a psychologist? Why would you? She called herself like a family planner or something like that.
They're always like family legacy planners.
Yeah, something.
So there is a little bit that's kind of tongue in cheek there. Here's what I'll say, is that there's a couple different kinds of wealth that I've seen over time, but in almost all instances, the family that doesn't take their company public and retains it and passes it on from generation to generation, those are the families that are really taking wealth and really passing it on. But we've all heard about the second generation, the third generation kids who can at times screw things up, that mommy and daddy built these empires. There's a reason why families like the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts have passed on these legacies of wealth to the next generation over and over and over again. They're doing something right there from a raising their kids and from a passing along this generational wealth perspective. So when you think about the context of what we think of building wealth is today, it's not what we once thought it was when we were kids. It's not just getting the money. It's setting up all these things and putting them in place so that there is a business that is living beyond you. That's really what our jobs are. You know, your job, my job, everybody in the financial space, our job is to provide this pathway for families to continue to grow, even if you're not there, if I'm not there, and if the people the patriarchs aren't there, the matriarchs aren't there. So I think a lot of people get confused in that, and I think people look for things like the quick, easy money out, like the taking a company public or selling an invention or this multi-million-dollar payday. Those are not the people who make the most money over time. It's those buildings that have that sign up on the when you're driving past them on the 405, it looked like a mom and pop kind of business. Those businesses are the ones that make more money over time. It's just this legacy of wealth that you can pass down to your kids. You're not just giving them money; you're also giving them a way to make money.
Sure. I worry about that as well with my kids, just making sure that they're going to have that what was the word that you say? Adversity creates character.
Adversity builds character. Yeah.
My kids have such a fucking easy life, man.
Compared to you, compared to me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even born in this country. I didn't have a home until I was 4 or 5 years old. So.
You realize we sound like geriatric fucks right now. I used to walk both ways up the hill in the snow.
And I had a beautiful life because my parents brought me to this country. My parents went through way harder times than I did, and now my kids. They've got such a beautiful life. I need to figure out a way to give them adversity. I'm hoping I can do that through sports or some other things.
You want to hear the fucked up thing, though?
Yeah.
Your parents came here to give you and to give them the opportunity to not have adversity. Yet the one thing that we both crave is some of that adversity that our parents came here to not have us have.
True. Very true.
It's fucked up.
It's crazy.
But it's real.
Yeah.
All the opportunity that they gave us, I mean, when you think, I can't imagine. My dad came here when he was 18. Can you imagine going to a foreign country at 18 just starting over?
My dad came here when he was 32 with 2 kids, didn't speak the fucking language.
Jesus.
You know, it's like, I'm 37. Like, I would imagine if I had my 2 kids and I'm going to Spain or some, well, I kind of speak Spanish, so France. Well, that's like, I wouldn't know where to start, you know? So my mom and dad
it's
always.
French, bro. Just take your shirt off, put it down low.
Oui, oui.
You'll be good.
Yeah, but I just think about those times, and I remember it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was at my parents' house, and I was going through my childhood album, and I was just looking through the pictures of my childhood, and I turned to my mom and I said, "Thank you." Like, I had an amazing childhood.
Yeah.
Very little adversity, you know, like the adversity that we experienced was pre my memories. Like, before I was 6, we had a really fucked up life, but I don't remember that, you know?
Well, then there was a basketball course that got your ass handed to you every week by me.
Please, come on,
I mean,
Doug.
just
Come
saying,
on. We can go finish it right now if you want.
We can't.
No, my back is
I
destroyed.
blow everything up. I haven't touched a basketball in probably
Neither
10
have
years.
I.
Yeah.
Neither have I.
I'll kill myself.
But yeah, I turned to my mom. I said, "Thank you," and it warmed her heart. Like, I think that was the first time. Of course, I'd say thank you for other stuff, but that thank you really set in for her. And I think all that crazy hard times that she went through coming to this country, like the stories that she tells me of, you know, when we were in Iran, I was in her tummy and there was bombs going off, and she was just like, "Fuck this, we are out of this shit country," because that country went from being beautiful to real shitty in a very short amount of time. And you know, they had no choice but to leave and start over. And that resilience, I think, has seeped through, because I did see my father bust his ass and try to work hard. And I'm hoping that will rub off on my kids as well. Just kind of seeing me, you know, because I work hard, but I don't work as hard as my dad did. My dad, you know, and I'm sure your dad it's just a different generation, what they had to go through.
It's a different kind of work, though. I look at what they did, and my dad. So we built a studio in an office that I share with my father. He runs the law firm for me, and I said to him, I said, "Look, we're going to be in real close proximity when we do this, but I know that I'd rather see you and spend time with you and fight with you than not see you and not fight with you, because I know that his perspective of work and mine at this point in my life are not the same." I think when they came up, it was more of like a manual, like force, right? When you're coming from a foreign country here, like you're forcing things, you're taking what you can. And I think in a lot of ways what we do now is more of an intellectual play.
Very
because
true.
we have the luxury of speaking the language. We have the luxury of having the education here, and somewhat of the pedigree, which frankly is from a racial perspective is even different. So I would say that we work in different ways, and at times it can be very challenging for my father to understand the way that I work.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I want to talk about your relationship with your father. You have a law firm. You have a real estate brokerage.
Yeah.
How did the connection with your father and the law firm come about?
My dad is kind of like a legal nut. Like he always kind of nerded out on it. It's a little known fact. My dad went to law school at the same time I did. We were in law school together at the same time.
Really?
Yeah. So when I went to law school, he was there with me in the same classes, doing the same thing. I mean, we didn't have all the same classes, but enough to where people were like, "Oh, hey, how's your dad?" And you're just like, "Fuck." And we went to law school at the same time, and he kind of geeked out on it, but he was so old at that point in time. I mean, he's 70 now, and law wasn't like something that was ever going to make him a ton of money or bring him any kind of income, but he really likes it. So we had a conversation at one point, and I said, "Look, like, you know, I'm licensed now. I don't need this to make money. Why don't we do it to help people?" And he kind of looked at me like, "Why would I do that?" And I said, "Well, you could stay at home every single day. You could retire, which is not your style. I want to get sharp enough on the law to be able to understand what I'm doing." And this is, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. And we just decided, you know what, this would be a great thing for us to do together. It would still give him the opportunity to teach me a little bit too, because he was so into the weeds on cases and everything else. So we really started it up for more of a pro bono thing. It wasn't so we can make money. It's still, to this day, we take cases on occasionally to pay the bills, but I settled the case last week. I think it was last week. It was a $300,000 payday. Easily, an attorney in my position would have taken 30% of that. I took not a dime. As a matter of fact, it cost me money to send checks to all the victims.
What was the case, if you can divulge?
I'm under an NDA, but I can give you kind of a highlight. One of the things I found a bit of a niche business in is that a lot of people get scammed online. A lot of people will sign up for services, courses, gurus, things like that, and they're just blatantly getting taken advantage of. I'm not talking you pay for a course and it's not as educational as you were hoping that it would be. I'm saying like you open up an Amazon store, or you open up, you go to like a real estate course, and you realize that everything there is just completely bullshit. People like kind of write this off as trivial, like, oh, you paid $100. Some of these courses are tens of thousands of dollars. Matter of fact, the victims in this case were paying $25,000, $35,000 a pop. So we were gonna do a whole class action. It was gonna be pretty impactful, and then one of the things I've been able to leverage, which is a bit unique for an attorney, is I've been able to leverage social media. Because of now getting traction and starting to build more of a social presence, both on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all these other things, is I can say, look, if you're unwilling to play ball, I can expose this and stop the bleeding, because there's other people who are going to be paying you money.
Right.
So that's what we did, and we leveraged the social media, we leveraged the profile to do that, and we were able to force them to come to the table and have a conversation, and everybody got made whole.
Badass.
And I could easily take money for that.
Sure.
But that's not the point. The point is we give back, and one of the girls actually sent me. I sent all the sub mailings out on Friday or Thursday or something last week, certified mail, and she got her check today. And she tells me, I'm pregnant, and my husband and I, we don't make a whole lot. This was a lot for us, and you can't buy that kind of karma,
Yeah.
And my dad, he gets to look in the mirror and he gets to feel the same way. We're actually doing something to help people's lives. I mean, this changed people's lives. I think at first he was a bit like kind of hesitant because he's always been like, I work for money. That's just what I do. This was a bit of a different thing for him. The real estate brokerage actually started to be something for my brother and I to do, and my brother and I just were at different places in life, and it didn't really work out well with the two of us working together, and he decided to go a different route. But my sister in Oklahoma, she is in real estate, and she was working under, I think, a big flagged brokerage at the time. I said, look, we could work together. She already manages my real estate in Oklahoma, which I've got a lot of property in around the Oklahoma City area, and then Texas and California. And I said, look, like, you're already managing my stuff. Let's formalize this business. Let's roll it into the brokerage, and let's make this a bigger deal. And it kind of works out really well for me for a number of reasons. Number one, it's my property manager. Now I've got a structured company there, but now I can cross-promote the brand from all the activity I do in California. Most of what I do is just I'm buying my own stuff.
Sure.
And I'm as a broker, I'm able to get my own fee. But now I can help build my sister's business by building the brand, and then I can continue to do things for friends.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for me to do deals for friends and family for very, very cheap, if not free.
I'm going to take you up on that. I've got a 12 unit in Texas that I'm looking to underwrite. I'd like a second pair of eyes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
12 unit?
Yeah,
No problem, man.
You mentioned something that really resonated with me, and that was people getting scammed and kind of being told the wrong thing.
Happens a lot.
And and I love you on social media for this. Like, I love you as a friend, but
I'm an asshole.
I love when you just shit on these fucking realtors. I got into a DM battle with this one realtor who was like,
It's aggravating, isn't it?
prices will never go down.
Supply and demand, man. There's just not enough supply. Prices will never go down. And you're just like,
it burns.
It's the same fucking rhetoric over and over and over again. And honestly, it's a fundamental disconnect to basic economics. It's just super disconnected to how it works, but everybody that they look up to is saying the same thing. And you have to understand, in order to be a real estate agent, there is not an economics course requirement. There is not there is no requirement. All you get real estate principles, you get real estate appraisal, you get real estate finance, but there is no economics requirement. So every single one of these realtors that are just spouting off this information, most of them don't have an economic degree. They're just literally regurgitating the same shit everybody else is saying to them.
Yeah.
When the irony of all this shit is, obviously I'm a little passionate about this, the irony of all this shit is housing is a lagging indicator.
Absolutely.
Lagging indicator. It will show up way later than everything else. And you know what? So these people are in the midst of this lagging period, and they're talking all this shit, and it just blows my fucking.
What I love is just how you'll post, a cute little meme. You'll have your 2-3 sentences, and then you'll add the source.
Everything
you
gets
do
sourced.
everything with
Yeah.
the source, and I love that. One thing that really resonated with me was that Dave Ramsey thing, because I a few years ago I was looking to generate leads for my own business, and Dave Ramsey has this like financial planner thing.
A network.
Yeah, and so I hit him up, and I was like, I don't want your type of leads. Like that's no, thank you. But then I saw they were doing those affiliate links with real estate agents, and it all started to make sense. And then when you were calling them out on it, I was like, yes, Chris, thank you. And I love that you do that.
They restricted me, those fucks.
Did they?
Yeah. So now I can't talk shit directly on the page. So what I do is I'll comment, even though I know only his people who run his account can see it, because he doesn't run his own account, and then I'll screenshot my comment, post it on I'll repost his post, and then I'll put my comment on it so people can see my response.
Nice.
And it's just so yeah, it's intellectually dishonest. It's a logical fallacy to think that Dave Ramsey is saying this for just because he believes it. Because he wouldn't be trying to get you to buy something. As a matter of fact, here, press the top right orange button right there. There you go, right there. Right, no, there you go. Oh, let me hook you up.
House prices are going to go up every year for the next 5 years. How do you know if you're ready to buy a house? Because if you're ready to buy a house, you need to buy now.
So house prices are not going to go up every year for the next 5 years.
Yeah. So another thing that I really dislike about Dave Ramsey, and this was before I even knew the affiliate links, I think he does a fairly good job of just teaching the principles of living beneath your means, not over leveraging yourself, but he doesn't believe in any debt. And you and I both know that
that's bullshit. Yeah, that's not.
Does he leverage himself at all? Does he use debt?
Well, so let's just put it in perspective. So I do think that Dave Ramsey has got some significant value adds for people, but I always break it down to people like this. Is he doesn't teach you how to fish. He's giving you fish. Don't be in debt. Well, that doesn't tell a reasonable adult how to live their life. It makes them afraid. But what it does make them is lifetime customers to his school, to his products, to his way of doing things. Because only he can show you this path. But the problem is that's not real. You can't run a multi-million-dollar business with no debt. You and I both know that. And if you are, you're missing out on a shit ton of tax fucking benefits, number one. Number two, you're missing out on arbitrage of that debt. And number three, you can't call yourself a successful business person if you run everything out of cash. Okay? That's just not the way that works.
So do you think he's lying? I mean, because he's got they say he's worth like $600-700 million. Do you think that's just pure cash, or did he?
I'm sure it's a combination of everybody else's net worth, right? It's real estate, it's his business valuation, whatever it might be. But look, he has debt. I don't give a shit what that man says. He has a credit card. Okay, there's no doubt about that in my mind. Now that being said, here's what I can prove unequivocally. He drives people like people who he gives that message to affiliate links because he's getting a commission off these links.
Of course.
So he has a vested interest in telling you to go out there and buy right now because he wants his realtors in his network to get paid so he can get his commission off that payment.
Sure.
He does the same thing for insurance. Don't ever buy whole, or don't ever buy term only, because term also happens to pay the highest commissions, by the way. So it's one of those things where it's so intellectually dishonest. I would have way more respect if he said, look, I get paid, this is how I get paid, you guys get this information for free, I'm trying to help you out, click this link, I'll get paid as the guy who referred you. And I'm sure he'd get a ton of conversion just by doing that. But instead of doing that and being forthcoming, which has been my only open criticism about him, which has kind of ramped up over time, he doesn't. He does stuff like this where that has been so categorically proven to be untrue. The National Association of Realtors says we're in a housing recession. You've got CoreLogic, Moody's, Fitch, every major data aggregating agency across the country have now revised their year-end expectations to be 0% growth, if not lower. House prices rise every 5 years. Every year for the next 5 years. And then all of them now are saying 2023 is going to be a bloodbath. And this on lagging data, which hasn't even come to fruition yet, which means by the time you get to the end of this year, by the time we get into Q4 of 2022, you're going to be talking about recessions. You're going to be talking about the impacts to real estate. And everywhere you look right now, you're already hearing the scuttlebutt, if you will, of the concern around real estate valuations getting hit hard. You can't have 25% growth in real estate values in a single year for 5 years and expect there not to be a problem. And the thing I keep telling everybody online is demand without affordability is not demand. So this whole supply and demand argument only takes one side of the equation. And to give you a great example of why that argument is completely bullshit, California is by far and away the most supply-strained economy. There has been for the first time in California history, a noted outflux of people due to the current people,
Exhibit A.
yeah, we're not sad you're gone, no, but but there's been a noted outflux because of all the turmoil that's going on. This is very much a democratic state. We'll skip the politics, but what I will say is, so even here where supply is so strained, from May to June, you saw house prices decline on average 10,000. From June to July, another 10,000. All the while, everyone's saying house prices will not go down. It was happening. It was just on MLS. It was real-time data. It wasn't being reported by the state agencies yet.
Yeah. No, I said Exhibit A because what would happen, my situation was as follows. What happened?
That was him.
Oh.
You're good.
Yeah, so
This is why you don't have an audience.
It was mid-pandemic. I think it was like a year into the pandemic. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, and she wanted to go back to work. So she reapplied to NBC, who was her previous employer, and they said, we've got two markets. We've got Denver, and we've got San Diego.
You remember you called me, right? When this happened.
Did I?
You bastard.
I don't remember that.
You did call me.
I called you for so many different things. I don't remember this specific conversation.
Me about this. Yeah, you told me you were considering either San Diego or Denver, and the next thing I know, like I'm seeing you in front of mountains. I'm like, well, shit, I guess that happened.
Yeah, but there was so much shit going on, and I will get a little political, even though I'm not a political person. But
I'll go. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm down.
I'll
Let's
go
fucking
deep into this
go,
shit.
baby.
Yeah.
But I remember we were like, fuck's Denver. We're going to San Diego. We live in Orange County. It's like an hour south. We started to go look at homes in San Diego, and I make fairly good money. I was looking at homes that I wanted to live in, and it would have depleted my entire life savings to get the home. But I think that's what most people do when they buy a home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we said, fuck it, that's what we have to do. My brother was my agent, so we put a couple offers on homes, didn't get them. He's like, you got to go over ask. I was like, fuck it, let's go over ask. And after like the fifth or sixth one, literally stretching myself to the point where I was thinking, if this goes through and I get this house, like, it's going to be a rough mortgage payment every single month, shelling that out. But I got to buy a house that I want to live in.
It's about utility at that point.
Exactly.
You need it for the family, you need it for the kids.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, whatever, let's do it. $250,000 over asking.
$250,000 over asking?
That was the straw.
So hard.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. I didn't get it.
I needed like $1.
I didn't get it.
Of course you didn't get it. You want to know why? Because whatever in that price range, money ain't a thing.
Exactly. And I was thinking, like, I'm doing well for myself. How does everyone have so much? I lost it to an all cash offer, by the way.
That was happening all the
No
time.
inspection, no low contingency, no appraisal contingency, no nothing. And my brother was like, dude, don't do it. I'm like, fuck you, do it. I need this house. I didn't get it. It was a blessing in disguise. We were driving from Carlsbad was the home. Carlsbad back to Orange County where I live. And I looked to my wife. I'm like, let's just go see Denver at this point.
Denver's beautiful, man. I was just there.
Yeah. Were you?
Yeah,
What part?
I was in Golden.
Yeah, Golden's gorgeous. I love Golden.
Yeah.
So,
although I couldn't fucking walk upstairs without dying. I was like,
yeah, the altitude got me too.
Motherfuckers.
So NBC flew us out. They put us up in a really nice part of Denver. My wife went and did her thing, and I rented a car. And
Can we paused for the fact that you just said NBC flew us out and put us in a nice, like, come on now.
Well, that's what they did. They really wanted her to work there.
Yeah.
So I rented a car, and I went and drove, and I was looking at the homes, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I can ball out here.
A lot of home.
For very cheap. And Denver and Colorado actually is not a cheap state. It's, I think, the 13th most expensive state, 12th or 13th. So compared to like Oklahoma or even Texas, it's not cheap. It's actually more expensive. But compared to California, it is just at a different level. So at that point, I'm like, I had just got off the phone with a client of mine. Client who was doing $13 million in revenue. He owned a catering company, and he was not catering like weddings. He was catering corporate events, like a Porsche event or a Hulu event or a Netflix event. And he went from $13 million to like $2 million. And he's like, dude, they won't even let me do this or that to try to make money. They just won't let me do anything. This government is just destroying my company.
Oh, California?
California.
Yeah.
And so I was hearing these like restaurants closing because of this and that, and like, but the corporate stores could stay open. And at that point, I was thinking, man, this is not fair to these people. Their livelihoods are getting screwed over. Meanwhile, I have a service industry. I can run it from my home. I'm fine. But these guys are just getting screwed over. And so I was like,
California for decades has been running the middle class out. They're I don't even know if it's intentional at this point or just stupid, but you have to understand that the policymakers are generally not economists. They're not people who understand the financial implications and ramifications of people. And most of them do not fall within the middle class. So because of that, these rules get made, and it's not fair.
It's not fair. And so I was seeing all these things. And then we put a couple offers on homes in Denver, and we got them. And I went at asking, and the homes were almost a third of the price of the homes that I was looking at in California. So now I had all my capital still with me, what I call firepower, to go out and do what I want, buy a rental property, buy a business. I have this beautiful big home for dirt cheap in a state that I love. Although I will say I do miss my friends and family being back here. It's a beautiful thing. This weather, what the fuck is up with this weekend's weather? It was ridiculous.
Hot as shit.
But now my wife and I are thinking, so her contract comes up next year, and we're trying to reanalyze the situation. Should we move back? Should we stay in Colorado?
Doesn't it depend on her job though? If she got an opportunity out here?
But the thing is, with her job, there's only two markets. There's LA and there's San Diego. There's no Telemundo or Univision of Orange County, and we don't want to live in LA. So it's really just San Diego.
I don't live in LA.
We don't like LA because where we'd have to live would be either like Studio City, or that's like the only city I'd want to live, because she would work in Universal City. So
that's why. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like if I could live in Palos Verdes or something, I'd definitely live there. But I don't, or Manhattan Beach. But I don't want to live in Studio City. No offense to anyone who lives in Studio City, but
we just lost like one listener.
So it's really just San Diego. So now we're thinking, okay, what if we do move back to California? I'm paying massive state income taxes, massive property taxes. I'm in San Diego, so I'm still an hour to 2 hours away from my friends and family. Denver is amazing to raise a family. It's got a lot of outdoor activities. It's
really fun, man. I had a great time. I was only there for 24 hours, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, we love it, man. We absolutely were very happy. The winter was not bad.
You ever do the lazy river through the Coors plant in Golden?
No, I've seen that many times, but
it's fun. Yeah,
there's so many cool things. And then just the politics there are much more conducive to my style of thinking. They don't get involved and try to shut you down and do this and that. So we'll see whether I come back or not. I'm very happy. I will say, regardless of what happens, I think if I were to stay in Colorado, I'd be very happy. I'd just have to fly back and forth. Now, with small children, it's tough. But as my children get a little bit older, I think that will be much easier, because being on a flight with a 1 and 3-year-old is a lot different than like a 5 and a 7-year-old.
This is true. I thought you were going to pull out I'm going to get a PJ card.
I wanted to, but I looked into that. I'm not there yet. I actually looked into getting my pilot's license and purchasing a fractional ownership of a plane. I did extensive due diligence. And even with the tax savings and the networking,
it's an economic loss every
time. It's
bro.
crazy expensive.
Our friend and former general counsel Bobby, he flies, and the cost is just you're not going to make logical sense of it.
No. Also, my wife is a local news anchor, and she was like, "You are not getting your pilot's license. All I do is report on plane crashes."
Yeah, planes going down.
It's just like, you're not. So, Southwest it is, or United. But, Denver's amazing, man. If you guys are ever in Denver, I'd love to host you.
Again?
Again. I think you'd like it a lot.
Batch 19. You ever had that while you're out there?
What's that?
Stop it. Really?
What did you say?
Batch 19?
No.
Nothing?
No.
All right, kids. Let me help you all out.
All right.
So they were cleaning out the Coors plant, and this like an older abandoned room. And they came across a bunch of old recipes for beer that were in there. Mm-hmm. And they made them. They're like, fuck it, let's just make these old recipes. The 19th batch they made, they actually sold. And instead of like coming up with the name, they're just like, fuck it, we'll call it batch 19. It's there in Denver on tap at like a lot of restaurants. It's so fucking good. It's like a lager, but it's got a little bit.
The beer game in Denver is
different
amazing.
Level. But there's like a level of arrogance with it in Denver, though. Like they take that shit like real, like it's a school. It's like wine. I literally walked in. I swear to God, a guy held up a bottle and was like, "You see this? You see the hops?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
It's good beer, man. Another thing that they're known for is like whiskey with infused different ingredients. I had an Earl Grey infused whiskey.
That doesn't sound good at all.
It was delicious.
Stop it.
It was so good. I'll send you a bottle.
Earl Grey. You want to know how I know you're Middle Eastern? I would like my chai in the whiskey, please.
You don't drink Earl Grey?
No.
Or Sadaf?
No, I don't drink. No.
You don't drink tea?
No.
It's because you're half Persian, man. If you were full, you'd have your tea.
I do drink tea, but I drink chai.
That's tea.
I know.
Yeah.
With milk in it, make it sexy.
There you go. There you go.
Cardamom and nutmeg in there.
Yeah.
But you want to hear how fucked up California is? California just put together a panel, or they're proposing to put together a panel, in raising the minimum wage for workers in the restaurant industry.
22 or 23?
22, I think.
Stupid.
But this is where it gets real stupid. It's only like the food industries, and it's only for those chains that have over 100 locations. So if you're somebody who owns a business and you've got 20 locations, what did you just do to that mic, man?
Sorry.
Be gentle. Gentle. It's the first time. And you get 20 locations, right? 20 restaurants, and that's a pretty big enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum wage doesn't apply to you. You still pay them whatever, say minimum wage. I think it's 15. But if you have 2 McDonald's, on the other hand, and you have 2 franchises, right? That applies to you. So California is effectively incentivizing the use of AI and automation. So if you walk into a restaurant, you don't see someone behind the counter. That's because California is making that logically a nexus that doesn't make any sense. So it's going to be less and less people behind the counters until such time as AI takes over. And I don't know if people know this, but there's like a couple businesses right now that make there's a coffee shop in a couple of airports, all automated. Crush it. $73K a month they're making.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Or they'll just pass on the cost to the consumer, which oftentimes happens. Yeah. It's a sad situation. I wish there was like a committee that would take a look at the legislation that's proposed, analyze it, and say, look, fuckers, this is what's going to happen if you do.
Look, fuckers, political.
Yeah,
term.
look,
like
fuckers should be like part of the slogan that they put together.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that committee's not going to get that.
Yeah. But I think that anyone who goes into politics, I don't think that they should be in politics. It's only the leaders that didn't come out right.
That came off a little left. Yeah.
I just don't like politicians, man. Like very few politicians I can look at and say that person is a good, genuine, good-hearted person.
So you have to think to yourself like the kind of personality that wants to be in politics, right? So in California, it's become so democratically charged that someone like Gavin Newsom, who has really just waited his turn. He hasn't effectively done anything spectacular. He hasn't been resoundingly successful in any way. He just waited his turn. He didn't cause any waves. He waited his turn, and now he's got a shot. And they're talking about him as a possible presidential candidate, which blows my fucking mind. But still, and that's how laissez-faire. I mean, California is by far and away a Democratic state, and it's at the point now where I don't know if you're a Republican, if you want to spend the money here to try to mount it. The problem is that machine is so built up in California democratically. They can put whoever they want into place. For a Republican to come in here and spend the money, if they lose, guess what happens? All that money they spent goes to waste.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democratic machine is still in place. So it would take a tremendous amount of money and time and energy. I mean, it would be generations before you can get back to balance in the state of California. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you've got Hollywood running out. You've got fintechs running out. And these are the major moneymakers for this state. These are what really brought people here to work. I mean, it was Hollywood. This was the golden, era of Hollywood. California was like the place to be. There was an influx of people who just wanted to work in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Then it was a tech industry. And now all these people are rushing out. And if you're an executive at one of these companies, it doesn't affect you. You can be it's a globalized business now. The globalization has taken over, and it doesn't really matter. You don't give a fuck how much you pay in California.
Mm-hmm.
But for everybody else who works in those industries, you're just getting slaughtered.
So with that being said, I know that California, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, even both, they had surpluses. What's your outlook on California as a state over the next short duration? We'll call it the next 5 years.
What do you mean, like just in general? Like, would you?
Yeah, if all these massive tech companies are leaving, there's been a mass exodus. I think it was the first year that there's a net loss in terms of population.
I don't know that people will leave. I mean, they fall in love with the fallacy that it's California. The homeless situation out here is really bad. And, I mean, it's bleeding everywhere. You can see, I mean, neighborhoods that used to be super high-end in Los Angeles are now just homeless people everywhere. And I don't necessarily know that I have an answer, but what I can tell you is that California's got a couple different challenges that are going to continue to be problematic for years to come. They want to be this like moral compass of the rest of the country. I don't know if you remember Trump sued California, tried to sue California because some of the stuff that they were doing as it relates to energy. Well, fast forward to now, and California says by 2025 you can't sell any new gas-powered vehicles in the state of California.
Yeah.
And California is the largest automotive market in the country. So you look at that and you say, okay, what are you saying to the auto manufacturers?
Mm-hmm.
They were already transitioning to electric. People already have an incentive to I mean, everywhere you look here, people have Teslas. You don't need to force business, but that's what they're doing. And let's not forget, it was a Democratic party who basically told Elon Musk to get the fuck out, and his response via tweet was message received, and he did. So I think you're driving innovation out on some level, and you're forcing a war, eventual war in the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to pay 13% on top of their tax rate forever in perpetuity. And if you're making money, and I know a lot of people who have, they said, you know what, honestly, I can move. And even if I move back to California after I've made my liquidity event or my money, then it's all good.
Yeah.
So I think that they're really causing people to look introspectively and say, I'm already getting smashed as a middle class. Inflation's out of control. Inflation, effectively, for the audience out there, is effectively a tax.
Sure.
That's really what it is. And we look at CPI as an inflation measure, which the new number comes out Tuesday, I believe. And that's all well and good. But core inflation, the real inflation that we feel, I mean, you remove gas, you remove food, is much higher.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most people would say it's probably peg it about 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tax we're all paying as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Now you layer in a state tax of 13%.
Mm-hmm.
That's 33% of your paycheck gone before you even see it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you property taxes in the state, and you start kind of adding these things up, and you ask yourself, like, how much money do I have to make to get by? A really popular meme went around the internet the other day, and I'll never forget. I looked at it and I thought, like, shit, this is bad when I see it. A guy said he made $1.5 million W-2 in California.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think his take home was?
Well, less than half, 48% of that.
It was about 48%.
Yeah. Yeah, I can quantify exactly, just because I'm a numbers guy, what the difference is.
I thought you were like a model.
Thank you so much.
You're so handsome.
But I actually know exactly what the dollar amount is. The money I'm saving having left California.
Exactly the dollar amount?
Fairly close, like within maybe 10, 20 grand. It's over six figures. And that includes
That's more than I make a year.
Stop. State income tax, property tax, cost of living, all these things, when you combine them, it's a massive amount for me, for most people. And for those of you who live in California, I will just say this. I'm a California guy. I've lived here pretty much all of my life that I can remember, all of my memorable life. And I was very reluctant to leave. I did not want to leave because I thought this is the best place to live. And for the longest time, it was.
I don't know that it is the best place to live.
Well, that's what I thought, because, it does have the best weather. And
Did you see the weather today?
I know the weather this past week is
it's been
not,
like 100 degrees every single day.
and humid, man.
Yeah,
I'm
humid
sweating
as shit.
sitting here.
No, you're sweating sitting here because you're drunk. That's fine.
That's true.
Different conversation.
But when I left and I experienced another state, I'm like, man, it's beautiful here. It's amazing here. The people are great here. Cost of living so much lower. Mm-hmm. And I've never experienced this because I always lived in California. I think that slowly, over time, more and more people will start to leave. And the process has already begun.
I think the college kids who leave to go out of state, fewer and fewer will come back.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think you're going to start seeing the next generation really kind of go, why would I go back to California?
And so that leads to the question of the tax base. All these massive companies are leaving. There's a net loss in migration. That surplus will eventually become a deficit. Layer on all of the bad policies.
This is generations from now before that happens.
You think it's going to take that long?
Yeah, I do. I think it'll take that long. The state has enough money. They're not hurting. The major industries, Hollywood, fintechs are still here. And as much as the problem is the uber wealthy is still here.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of the uber wealthy that owns real estate, that takes advantage of those loopholes, until those loopholes get cut off, the same loopholes I take advantage of every single day, they're going to stay here
Mm-hmm.
because their tax rate effectively is lower than everybody else just because they have the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the uber wealthy who are the W-2 wage earners, if you're a corporate executive, let's say you work at a bank, say it's publicly traded, and say you make 7 figures a year,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get taxed well north of 50%
Mm-hmm.
of what I make.
But you got that real estate tax.
I do, but here's a perspective though: is that tax benefit only inures to the income I'm making from that real estate.
Sure. It doesn't offset your W-2.
It doesn't offset my W-2. So my blended rate is still going to be average way higher than a normal real estate investor because all this other money that I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do get the benefit of health care. I do get a benefit of all those things. If I were to take the same salary and move to Texas, for example, I would save 13%.
0.3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But your property tax is a little bit higher. I mean,
your property tax, well, I mean, here's the benefit for someone like me is I live in a relatively modest home. My wife and I live in a 1,180 square foot place. My mortgage payment is $1,700 a month. So for us to move to Texas and get even a modest, larger home, it would not be significant.
Can I ask you, I mean, I understand living below your means, but you make very good money.
You don't know that? You're assuming that.
You literally just said that. and I know, you know.
I do all right.
Why are you not upgrading your style of living? I mean, just your home, I would say. Is it a personal preference? Is there a
For those of you out there listening in listener land, Saeed, my co-host, is also in the room right now, and he's probably laughing his ass off because he's been sending me listings every single week. I looked at some properties during the kind of the early stages of the pandemic, and like you, where the average person was putting in 8 offers before they got something accepted, I was chasing things up. I think it was like 200, 250,000, similar to you, over at one point. And I looked at my wife and said, look, it's just the 2 of us and our son. Our son's 3. And it is close quarters, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath. But it's like it forces us to be together. And when my wife and I got married, I bought her a property. A year later, I bought another property. I'm actually kind of due to buy another one. That's hers. The income is hers. And we don't spend that way, and we don't, kind of separate the money and whatever, but I feel so lucky and so blessed. And that kid that wanted everything so badly and just I thought that I deserved more because I just thought that I had this capability that was unrecognized. Well, now he's a guy who says, I've been on this upward trajectory for so long that it's not always going to be positive. You can plan. You can plan for everything in life. But the reality is we all have difficult times. Smart, talented as you may be, we all fall in difficult times. And I'm due. I know I'm due. I've had a very blessed life, and I've been very fortunate for all the things that I've been lucky enough to do. And maybe I'm still afraid of being poor deep down inside. I know when the time comes and this next correction we'll buy someplace. But even then it'll be relatively modest versus what we can afford. I don't want my son to see the luxury we can afford until later. It does pose problems when you've got 5 cars, 2 of which are vintage custom show cars that you have to house and store places and stuff like this. But, those are short-term problems for longer-term perspective. I want my son to go to school and not think that he's wealthy. So my wife and I, we live below our means on purpose.
Far below your means.
I wouldn't say far, but we do all right.
Yeah.
And, if that ever changes, what I'll tell you is right now, if I were to lose my job and I were just to make money doing what I'm doing passively and some of the small stuff I do at like the real estate firm and stuff like that, nothing in my life would change. Everything would be the same. And that's a good feeling.
Very.
So.
That's awesome, man. So when you were in your early 20s, like me, I was very similar to you in that I was very money hungry, and I was, driving a car well outside of my means, and spending money on stuff that I shouldn't have been, trying to keep up with the Joneses and the early 20s, as many of us do. Now that I'm a little bit older, I still live below my means, but I like to enjoy my life and I like to enjoy my home and these things. What do you think is going to need to happen for you to kind of elevate that and start to enjoy the money that you're making?
I do enjoy it, man. I mean, I got a massage tonight before. I get a massage every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to Hawaii in a week, my wife and I. We take my son my son was at Disneyland today with the babysitter and my wife.
So it's just maybe the housing that you're living very modest.
Well, I mean, look, my wife's car is paid for. My cars are all paid for. We don't have any debt other than the mortgage debt we have on the properties. It's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with this a lot myself. Here's what I'll say, is that people get lost in a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
If I told you how much my American Express billed every single month, you'd be like, how? Like, you live so fucking conservatively. How the fuck could you spend that much? I'll do it for the sake of that conversation. I think my bill last month was $46,000.
Mm-hmm.
My personal Amex,
Mm-hmm.
not my business. Business on top of that. We spend a lot of money. When you run all these companies and you do all these things, there's just this constant cycle of money coming in and out. I don't want to make it sound like I'm living like a hermit or something like that. But, I think a lot of what I'm still doing is in growth. I know this sounds terrible. I'm still in growth mode.
Mm.
I'm still in, let's focus on building something. I believe this show that we're doing, the Higher Standard, I think we're going to make 7 figures off this.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take us, a couple more years. I think we really hit monetization. I think is like a 3-year horizon for us. And a lot of what I'm doing is getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm under a lot of NDAs, but what I will say is I'm in development for 2 television shows currently. And I never thought I'd be in this situation. So as far as I'm concerned, why go over the top and enjoy those things and to celebrate a victory when I haven't won yet? And I don't know what winning looks like, and I don't know if any of those things will make me feel good. But I know that no matter what happens from this point forward, I'll be all right.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. You're doing everything that you should be doing in the right way.
Well, that's the irony of the social media stuff that I do. Like, I'm not telling people to do shit that I'm not doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Dave Ramsey where I'm telling you to do something. I'm not keeping current matters, another notorious offender out there telling people these things. I literally do what I tell people to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not telling people to do it because I think that I'm smarter. It's because I've fucked up a lot,
Mm.
a whole lot. I mean, I've had 2 7 series, and I have no idea why. My 7 series payment, the second one that I had was $1,200 a month. My mortgage payment was $1,700 a month.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Right.
That was, I lived in the same place when I had
Yeah.
that car, and it didn't make any sense. And Hugo, the chief risk officer who we work with, he came out of retirement to work with us at the bank, and he has one around probably like 200 apartment units. Very successful guy, very smart, very modest. He sat me down one day and was like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Why are you driving that old man car?"
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't believe the way he was talking to me, but he's so right about everything. And he's really defined and redefined kind of my perspective. And I'll tell you what really hit home for me is we see a lot of high net worth individuals, a lot of celebrities. Celebrity clients are almost always not as wealthy as you think they are. And the ones who are the wealthiest, and we have a deep, deep introspective look at people's financial position, their lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do as a bank.
Sure.
You look at all this,
Right.
tax returns, their structures, everything. The most successful, wealthy people are never the ones you really think. Some of them are the nicest fucking people. And they don't live this lifestyle. They don't have these luxuries. They don't think about those things. Rick Keller, the guy who is the guy who started the Keller Group, which now is First Foundation Advisors, which we grew out of.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably worth about $50 million now, maybe more. And I was on a flight with him. I think I was going to like Las Vegas or something. No, I was going to Dallas. Dallas. And I was on the plane with him. I was sitting next to him, and I was helping him with his iPad. And he had this moment where he looked at the stock price, and he goes, "I'm worth $50 million." It wasn't arrogance. He was legitimately like amazed.
Right.
he was just like, this, how did this person get here?
Yeah.
And I know how he got there. He got there because he was a really good, honest person who did the work. And maybe one day I'll be on a plane and I'll have that epiphany too.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I need to live like that every day.
Yeah. As you were saying this, I was just thinking to myself and kind of checking myself, because 95% of my clients, all my clients do well for themselves, but they also enjoy their life. But I have a few handful of clients that are very wealthy and they never enjoyed their money. They just have a shit ton of money. Now they're in their 70s or 80s, and they don't.
But what is enjoying money?
Well, that's what I was going to get to.
Is it the social media life? Is it like going on vacation? I mean, sometimes you need a vacation from the vacation when you get back.
Yeah.
So I beg to differ with a lot of people's perspectives of what enjoying money looks like. And
that's what I was going to get at, is that I was thinking that you're not enjoying your life, but the housing is almost a negligible point compared to you and your lifestyle. You're living your
when you buy a big ass house like that, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you need the utility, you need space, that's fine. Who are you buying that for?
True.
Like my family, we spend more time together because we're forced to be together and like around each other.
Mm-hmm.
If we get tired of being at home, we go out and do stuff together as a family. If my son's awake, like I want to hear him be awake. I don't want to be rooms away. Like I want to be next to him. I want him to come like to the next room over and see daddy. Like I want to be a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's me enjoying my money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at shit like this. People buy like cars. Like my brother wanted to buy an M4 competition. Thank God he didn't. He came. He decided not to do it last minute. He didn't want to spend the money. And I thought to myself, like, I was that kid. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that was one of the key mistakes I made growing up. The first piece of real estate I bought in the Midwest as an investment property, I put $35,000 down. Well, my 7 Series payment was $1,200 a month,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I was going out and spending, $400 or $500 a weekend on drinks and partying.
Yeah.
That was really 1 year of just not doing stupid shit.
Right.
I bought my Jeep for $36,000.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I mean, we start doing the math on some of these things. You think to yourself, like, how much money are we pissing away?
Yeah.
For who? I got to tell you, I have a hell of a lot more fun in the Jeep with the windows down. Like, you know how I got the Jeep? Here's how I got the Jeep. I went to Hawaii on a business trip, and I rented a car. It was a business expense. They got me a Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, I was driving through Waikiki, and I'm like, why the fuck don't I have Laguna Beach is just like Waikiki.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. Why don't I have one of these? This is so much more fun. I had, the top was open. It was in the back of the trunk, and it was great. I went on a hike, came back. I wasn't worried about keeping the car clean. I was like, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Just hose it down. I got back literally the next week. I bought a Jeep.
That's awesome.
Got rid of that 7 Series. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is what I want.
That's awesome.
I think a lot of people, you think that you're enjoying money by spending it and doing all these crazy things. But I would say, if you're going to continue to spend money like that, you need to have a source of money coming in. And for some people who are very wealthy, that's fine. But I don't spend money like that. But I also don't need money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be just fine tomorrow if everything went away. And that is enjoying your money.
Absolutely. Just not having that stress of trying to make those payments or making sure that you can make those payments.
Yeah, I'm not worried with that.
Yeah.
With that at all.
And I think that's why I'm enjoying Denver so much, because like you, my mortgage payment is about $3,300 a month.
Damn, ball so hard, bro. Double mine.
But
wow.
I have almost a 4,500 square foot home, but I have 6 people who live in that home.
Do you play Jay-Z when you walk in every single time?
No, because I live with 5 Latin women, so I got my mother-in-law, my nanny, and my wife, and my 2 kids who speak Spanish, which is kind of tripping me out because my 3.5-year-old sometimes will just say "por qué" to me. I was like, what? But no, but my mortgage payment is very affordable for this big house. That same mortgage payment, if I wanted it in San Diego, is like $15-16 grand a month, which like I said would have hurt to make every single month. But living in Denver, it's nice, it's chill. I can hopefully I don't lose my business, but if I lose my business, I have other passive investments that would pay for it. And I understand now why you're living the way that you're living, which I think is beautiful.
Basically, you called me a hobo. It's fine.
A little bit. No.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Why the podcast? Why are you doing this?
The podcast was originally going to be titled Fighting in Finance.
Which I like. I like that name.
Do you?
I like that name a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to start a podcast about the passions that I have.
Oh, unless your wife vetoed the name. If your wife
No,
vetoed
it was actually a gentleman. My first guest vetoed it. He's like, I don't think anyone's going to like that. But
Fighter and the Kid. That's a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was the wrong decision, but I just decided to talk about things that I absolutely love, which are fighting in finance. So I've had a lot of fighters on. I'm doing a lot with fighter benefits. We're trying to start an insurance policy that I'm creating specific to fighters. I've been working on that since 2016. Hopefully it will get done in the next couple years.
Oh, wow.
Backed by Lloyd's of London. So I just said, if I'm going to create this insurance policy, I kind of want to get out there and talk to fighters and talk to people in this space about it. And then obviously, I have podcasts every single client meeting. So when I'm sitting down with someone who's worth $20-30 million, they generally have a pretty fucking cool story. And so my first introductory meeting with them is me just getting to know them. How did you get here? What would you like me to do for you? So I've had these.
Do you have any daughters? Are they single?
That was pre me getting married.
Pre-marriage.
But those were all podcasts. They were long 1, 2, 3 hour meetings that I would have. And so I just said, why not do this? And you actually motivated me quite a bit. I remember, if this was one conversation that I do remember, you said, are you a thought leader?
Yeah, man.
And I said, I don't even fucking know what that means. But now looking back at it,
I was hitting on you.
it worked.
It did work, yeah.
But that's why I started, because I'm thinking, I want to talk to these fighters. I want to make sure that they're protected because I respect them so much. And then also, I want to talk to people like you who are knowledgeable about finance, and I want to kind of intertwine these things. And I'm hoping that people, will be attracted to it. And if not, I'm still enjoying it. It's not, it's not really costing me much other than a little bit of my time.
Until you build a studio, and then that shit gets way out of control.
I have a little bit of a home studio, nothing like this.
I saw it. It was nice.
Yeah, but it doesn't cost me too much money. So that's why I'm doing it. It's just kind of a passion project. We'll see where it leads to. If it leads
Every single one of my businesses started off as a passion project, man.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised how those nights and that time can add up to something positive.
Yeah.
It really does come back full circle. I think if you do something legitimately and you do something with consistency over time, those passion projects always wind up paying.
Yeah, I think so too, and we'll see. I just launched it a couple months ago. We've had maybe 5 or 6 episodes.
I know. I've seen all yours. Unlike you, not have seen all mine.
I told you I've seen 7 or 8.
There's
with
70 episodes.
Saeed.
There's 70 episodes. You've seen 1/10.
Because I only want him there for Saeed. I don't give a fuck about you.
He's been on at least like 40, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But
I can't get him to shut up. Thickness over there, like Kim Jong-un.
Oh, man. I think that's a good spot to end it, man. I mean, thank you so much for coming on and letting me do the podcast.
Technically, you came on.
I know. Let me do the podcast in your beautiful new studio. Congratulations, by the way. I have no doubt this is going to be very successful.
I hope so.
Yeah,
if
thank
not,
you,
we
man.
Fire Saeed, we'll blame him.
Yeah. Well, cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, my brother.
And before we go, make sure you leave my friend here an honest 5-star review. He needs it.
Yeah, I do. Thanks, everybody. See ya. Boom.